bien. C'est sur très...
SonarFeed! Woo!
Hello and welcome to episode 257 of SonarFeed. George is here at the bar. Our special guests today are the Cascadia Cup, also known as George, and James Riley. I'll be your host, Dave Clark. You can find me at BetterThan on Twitter. And let's work our way let's start all the way down to my right, but not the guy without the... There he is.
I've got a mic. There's a strange audio issue I'm trying to figure out. So, anyways.
Who are you?
I'm Adam with the strange audio issue.
Is that Adam's left?
At Weigel. Tom Bureau, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli.
Mark Nesteroff, a.k.a. SSFC Fody 13.
Do you still have that other account?
Oh, El Tigre Fracaso?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not touched that in a while.
Good choice. To your left.
To my left.
James Riley, a.k.a. John Legend.
Just before you arrived, I did tweet at you and CC'd John Legend because I thought one of you would get it.
Received.
It would be Chrissy Teigen.
I'm Mickey Turner ESQ on the Twitters.
We're SonarFeed. Thanks to the Berliner Pub, 3rd Main, downtown Renton.
Ahead of the curve.
It still works. We're going to be talking about the Seattle Sounders, the 9-game winning streak Seattle Sounders, 12 games undefeated, Cascadia Cup earning Seattle Sounders, currently 5th in the West and something like 9th overall, but capable after this week, if things go right in this nice double-game week, of being as high as 2nd in the West and something like 3rd overall. So that's your Seattle Sounders.
Just the way we planned it, right?
Exactly. So let's just get right into that. James, you're rather familiar with the team. You used to play for them, I guess?
Right. Long time ago.
This is a little bit different of a technique than you guys used back in the day. Did you ever think you'd see an MLS team go on a run like this?
No, I mean it's remarkable. It's fantastic, especially with the parity in the league and the difficult schedule and how teams are just getting so much better all around their roster. I mean, it's a fantastic achievement thus far, and without a doubt, they're not done. I mean, they would love to just take this all the way into the playoffs and ride it all the way to another MLS Cup for sure.
It's pretty ridiculous, to be fair. And not that things haven't changed and there haven't been like winning streaks and craziness over the last decades. But you would not have seen this coming. We talked about things that even if it was turned around, you would have expected, like, maybe we have a half-decent finish, but to just keep rolling on teams, even though it got chippy and they fought through like what you'd expect a Cascadia Cup match to be on Saturday night. They stomped Vancouver for a chunk of that game, and we'll talk about some specific stuff later. But it feels like it just keeps going, and no matter what the challenge is, they just keep bringing it. And it's just impressive from week to week to week.
For the most part, these results have come against teams, better than them. Like that first win over the Vancouver Whitecaps was against a side that was higher than them in the standings, and at the time, the Whitecaps were a playoff side. Even Minnesota United, when they were beaten, were better.
They were ahead of us.
Yeah, and particularly at home, we're an incredible home side. And you look New York City FC, who has fallen apart a little bit, but throughout the West, one of the interesting things is while the Sounders keep on winning, the West is actually quite strong. Like if you look at the top 6 teams in the West, and maybe Vancouver, there are really, at this point, only 2 teams in the East that look stronger than those sides. Like, Atlanta is still extraordinary. The Red Bulls are still extraordinary. New York City's kind of fallen off a little bit lately, and there is a real opportunity to, like, not just host a Western Conference playoff game, but set yourselves up for an MLS Cup.
It's just crazy. What are there, 6 or 7 teams ahead of Sounders overall? Is it 7? I'd have to go through and count, but
They're in 5th right now. So.
Overall?
No, in the Shield.
No, in the Shield.
In the West.
4,
West, yeah.
3, 7 overall, I believe.
7.
Because they pulled ahead of Columbus.
Getting to 10 would have been like a really great stretch goal, let alone,
Schmetzer was asked about that. He does the Monday Night Radio show, which going up against Monday Night Football meant that I listened. And he was asked about what their goal is now, and he goes, right now, we see no reason why the 1st or the 2nd seed shouldn't be the goal.
Hashtag hella greedy.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, it's the goal is to make the playoffs, and we'll just see what happens. And now it's win the West. That's go for the kill, as Damon says in the background.
Yeah.
If you're watching online, we've got a nice crowd here today because, the Cascadia Cup's here, and James Riley's here.
Hi, George.
And those are two things that are much more interesting than
there's the
standard
Cascadia Cup now.
There it is.
Oh, I love it.
We'll check in. We'll check in with the Cascadia Cup from time to time this evening, and Cascadia Cup is mic'd for your viewing pleasure. We definitely want to talk. We definitely want to talk to the Cascadia Cup about things like being lifted up by his handles, and
he does not consent.
Who his favorite sounder is, and whether or not the Cascadia Cup's office or home has been raided by the FBI. We'll get to that later this evening.
More on that next.
Bouncy house questions?
Right. Thanks. We would just sit here forever. I mean, just to ruin the inside joke, we did make cracks about bringing sticky notes and doing the Alton Brown Twitter responses to your questions version of questions for the Cascadia Cup, and just putting sticky notes. And then we opted not to do that. Also, we didn't have any sticky notes. So
or
anyway.
a pen.
But we can talk about some more important things. But, James Riley's here, and we're going to talk about Sounders. And you've got some really cool stuff going on. I think you have some really cool stuff going on anytime you're here. But I think you've got some new news and some things to dig into. We're happy to jump into that stuff if you want to, or we can talk Sounders and come back to that.
Yeah, let's start with the Sounders, and we'll come back to my projects afterwards.
So what do you think of the game generally?
For me, just the run is incredible. I think kind of having now more of an inside look, not only at S2, but the first team as well. If you go back to the beginning of the season, the goals for me to finish first or second were always what they wanted to do, right? But then you have the variables that come in. You have injuries, you have key injuries, you have the Champions League, you have the World Cup, and you have, at the first part of your season, you're missing 7 key starters, which for any team in this day and age in Major League Soccer, with the restrictions of the salary cap and the roster construction, is almost impossible to really compete. And then you bring those guys back and they go on a run. So essentially they're fielding the team minus, say, 1 or 2 players that they would normally be fielding at the beginning of the season had everything gone to plan and gone to fruition. And so now you're seeing the reaps and the benefits. They're reaping the benefits of the struggles that they had at the beginning of the season. I mean, they were losing games in very difficult situations, very difficult manners, but defensively they were always very stout, which is very key. And once they started getting some goal production, that evened out. And now you see a team that's resilient, that literally feels like they can beat anyone, anytime, any day. And with that type of team, you have momentum. And for me, there's no reason why they should not go undefeated all the way to MLS Cup.
Ooh, undefeated to MLS Cup. So we're looking at
there's a tattoo bet, by the way. If Sounders win out, someone said they will buy anyone a Sounders tattoo. And 2 weeks ago, I was like, that'll never happen. Now I'm like, that could totally happen.
I was Numbers Dork Dave looked at 538 and their predictions for every remaining game, and in every remaining game, the Sounders are favored to draw or win. That includes on the road to L.A. this weekend. That includes on the road at Houston, which are kind of the two. Heck, if you look at it, hosting Philly and at L.A., and then the Houston game, which is only a week. The Rapids are in between there. But 3 of of the next 4 games, the 3 most difficult games remaining on the schedule are all in that span. And yet they're still, like, Houston and LA are 44% to win.
But of what's left, I think Houston away,
Yeah.
tough just because you're away.
The travel.
And that's coming off the back
Maybe-
end of a midweek game, I think, against Orlando.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and maybe Galaxy away because you're in a situation where you're a week or so out after letting a coach go.
Well, they got that big coach firing boost where
It worked out.
Yeah, it worked out for them. They performed even better than normal and lost.
I mean, if your
5-3.
name's Latan, it worked out. But other than that, they got no bump from that. But really, like, that Houston away is the match. And I would have said even 3 months ago, that was the match you would have looked at and been like, ooh, I don't know if you can take that. Orlando was already kind of a disaster. But right now, you look at that and you're like, confident. I mean, there's a couple of trap games just because there's weeknights and a couple of other. You got a Monday night, you got a Wednesday in Orlando. Like, you've got some weird stuff. But
We got 8 p.m. this Wednesday. 8,
But-
not 7, not 7:30.
very excited
8,
about that.
8 p.m.
How
reason
many
for that?
Philly fans do you think will stay up to actually watch?
I don't.
11 on a Wednesday?
So I learned the other day that the reason it's 8 is to get out of the way of the 10 p.m. news. And that was why they scheduled it that way.
Philly asked for the move.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Sounders wanted to move the night because it was in the. I think that match was originally at the beginning of the year.
It was
during
supposed to be like
TCL or
April
whatever,
when
during
there
the
was that.
congestion.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, and Taylor Graham and a few others have
Baby Bear.
explained kind of how the scheduling works and sort of the horse trading and whatnot that goes on. And that was one where they were like, yes, we'll take a midweek at the end of the season rather than jam yet another
Yep.
game in before World Cup
Totally.
break. So not really worried about it. The 8 p.m. thing is funny because a lot of people love it. And then other people who are like Mark that have to get up at what time? 0 dark 30.
4:30.
Yeah. Mark doesn't get up at 4:30. Mark's alarm goes off at 4:30.
Correct.
How's that? Yeah.
Correct.
But, other than that, I mean, 8 p.m., I mean, it's frankly outside of this country, maybe not on a weeknight quite as much, but Friday, Saturday, you're going to go to 8, 9 p.m. matches.
Oh,
Mexico, Spain,
Spain.
like
Yep.
9:30, closer, 9:45. That's not unheard of in the rest of the world, but for us, pretty weird. 8 p.m. You can get a siesta, leave work at 4, kick it for a couple
Leave
hours.
work at 4.
Go to the match, get tapas after.
There's a rumor that the Cascadia Cup will be making the rounds on Wednesday. So if you're at a couple of bars where ECS tends to hang out,
It does get around.
There's a list. There's a list of things called partner bars.
yes,
Start there.
yes.
If you want to find the
So-
Cascadia Cup, go to partner bars.
and I believe is marching. Yes, so the Cascadia Cup will be popular.
It has legs?
You can't see them; they're hidden right
Oh,
now. Yeah,
It's sitting down.
it's like a pigeon. Like it sits, and you're like, weird.
Penguin?
Tom, I'm going to interrupt this for a little functional thing. James, we're allowed to eat on the air here, so it's not like
We don't stand
S2.
on ceremony
Yeah, I was
at
trying
all.
to be polite.
Coming
See,
Don't have to
from
worry about it.
you, Dave?
I don't want him to wind up like he shouldn't wind up like me around Fishlock. He could eat.
And
Mike Facito.
Steve Zakwani,
So why don't we let
Roy
you eat,
Lassiter.
and we'll dawdle for a while rather
You
than your
guys
food
know
getting cold.
I'm okay for now. I had a snack
Okay.
prior.
You sure?
Yes.
All right.
All good. Thank you. Yeah.
the fries are better warm.
If you
snack
want
while-
us to just
And you
talk
should have had the
around
bigger
you,
beer. I was right.
larger beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Back to soccer,
What's that?
the sport that unites us.
Oh,
Yes.
got it.
That is what we're
Soccer.
talking about tonight.
That was so thoughtful.
Soccer.
Dave Clark.
Hey, can I tell? I want to tell a little story because James and I shared in this moment, as well as our most frequent and regular guests here at the Berliner Pub. Those of us that were at the S2 game,
I was there.
Weigel, who's my boss down there. the game ended. Most of the players left.
Oh, yes.
And they put the rest of the Cascadia Cup match, probably it was all a stoppage time and about 4 or 5 minutes of the end of the game, up on the big screen.
Nice.
And so a lot of the crowd stayed, like, once that happened, basically nobody was going to leave. And so we all watched, and we were, like, packing our bags. And instead we just kind of stopped and watched the rest of the game. And if you look down on the field while everybody's, like, cleaning up and everything, Callie Brown doesn't go into the locker room. Instead, he's doing, like, post-game stretches, but everywhere he faces is looking at that screen. Like, he's watching intently his teammates close out a trophy victory. And then the final whistle blows, and he goes over to the ECS members that had stayed for all of that, shakes hands, kisses babies, and then goes to the locker room. And it was really interesting to see that from, S2 had a rough night. One of the rougher.
Probably because they were playing a soccer game.
Damn.
But to see that from one of the first team players, now I'm not like there were other first team players there. Henry Wingo probably had a broken nose, so I'm not really surprised that he didn't stay out. Sam Rogers was out for a while, but to see that intensity from a player who's really new to the organization and to watch him care like that, I thought it was really impressive. And I know the organization does a lot to talk about the importance of things like Cascadia Cup and supporting of the fans. I'm just going to leave this to a question, James. Are you all that surprised that somebody's so fresh and new to the organization paid that much attention?
Right. No, thank you for that. Great segue, because for me, we spoke about that on the air at an S2 game, or off the air at an S2 game earlier in the season, where you saw a team go out there, maybe not perform to the best of their abilities, but you saw the effort and not get the result that they wanted, but didn't really know how to interact with the fans. So a lot of them walked straight in to the locker room. And I said that is an absolute cardinal sin. You said you always applaud the support, win, lose, or draw. They respect your efforts. You respect their time and the devotion they've given to you to support you for the 90-plus minutes. And, you acknowledge that. And so that was the best thing to see, even before the Callie Brown, was the team did do that as a group. They went over, applauded the ECS and the other supporters, and then they went into the locker room. We don't know if that feed could also be in the locker room, so they may have had access to that as well. But it was really cool to see Callie Brown stay on the field and be fully connected to the result in Vancouver. For me, a player that's coming from a different organization knows how special it is to come to an organization like the Sounders, one, not just because of what they do on the field, but because of the people behind the scenes that I think really make it tick. And that goes to prior people like Sandy Gregory was absolutely influential in my community efforts. Like with the number one person within my community efforts during my time with the Sounders was Sandy Gregory, Gary Wright, and you talk about, the Grant Clarks, the Vince Johnsons, the people completely behind the scenes, the training staff, the medical staff, those guys, and what they do to really get people ready to compete. And there's my sippy cup again, which is all good.
I asked for a larger one, and they said we already got him another small one.
But I think that will be an iconic photo when the Sounders really make a run at the playoffs in this MLS Cup, because you have a player that is fighting to get essentially onto the first team, right? He's fighting for a backup spot. But he sees the connection. He knows how special it is to be on a team that is on this run, right? That's almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be on a team that has had the turnaround that they have at this organization during this timing. Like those type of things sometimes are lost in players. For me, it was great, and I almost went back in time to see him take a deep breath after a game, after a loss, after a result, to really watch that and then contemplate that. For me, I'm thinking almost like as a grandfather, as someone like bestow wisdom upon him, I'd be like, that's the best thing you could have done. And then to go over and then interact with the ECS is icing on the cake, and the other supporters groups. I mean, that's what it's really all about.
Can we roll it back a few years, several years, about halfway through your career? 2010, you've been a Sounder for a year. At that point, you've understood and learn this soccer community, but there are new guys on the team.
Right.
How do you talk to them about things? There wasn't the Cascadia Cup, but he did have an Open Cup game.
Mm-hmm.
You did have this dedicatedness fan base, which for you was new and special. You'd been around the league and you hadn't seen stuff like this before. So how do you have those conversations with the young players coming up? Again, in 2010, 2011, as you're a seasoned veteran who'd been around the league a little bit.
Right. No, great question. I mean, prior to coming to Seattle, I was with New England with the Midnight Riders, great supporters group. I was in San Jose with their supporters group, and then come to Seattle, and it was. I mean, they said that they blew it out of the water. To be honest, just the support during a game, how loud it was, but just their, I guess, commitment to players. And for me, you didn't have to do, I guess, extraordinary on the field to be recognized by the supporters groups. It was very easy. I mean, if they could see your work and your passion and your efforts for the team, you would be applauded. And if you acknowledge their presence and their support, then you would be applauded even more. And so when younger players came in or players that weren't, that just got in with the Sounders, it was simple. It was, without a doubt, win, lose, or draw, you applaud the supporters group, the ECS and the other supporters groups, without a doubt. That's a non-negotiable. And then also you want to be accessible, and so that's why we're there after training, we're there after the games. I know 2009. It's funny. I learned from Sebastian Letou, Roger Levesque, and Taylor Graham how to stay after a game and sign autographs. I know Sebastian Letou used to stay after till the last person was gone to sign autographs, right? And so they were even going on what they had done at the USL level. And so for me, I've always looked and tried to acknowledge best practices and kind of follow those. And so Sebastian Letou was fantastic, Roger Levesque was fantastic, and Taylor Graham was great, and so was Zach Scott. I mean, I followed them and knew that the efforts they had put in prior to the MLS team were great, and the players prior to that. And so for me, I've always been a person to acknowledge those efforts and then try to take it a step further. And it was just me being who I was. I loved interacting with the fans, win, lose, or draw, because I knew that they could applaud my effort. I was happy with my body of work on the field, that I could be proud of that and feel fully confident going over to more times than not celebrate with the supporters group, or just acknowledge their presence if we hadn't gotten the result that we did get.
Was it difficult dealing with, as you do, S2 kids who don't really know the culture and they're super young, or is it easier because they're more impressionable and they're looking to impress?
Great question, and I think it's fantastic that they have a veteran players like David Estrada and Lamar Nagel's been getting some game time with S2 and Brian Meredith, because those are the links. If you have a completely young S2 team without veteran players that have been there and done it, then for me that history gets lost, and that's what I was really vocal about early in the season. I said, and I knew it came to the injury crisis that the first team was having, but I didn't see enough first-team players down at the S2 games, and you need that link, you need that connection. It would be like being on we've all played or tried to play high school soccer without any juniors or seniors. Like you need someone that has that link and that knowledge to what it takes to get to a certain level, for what it takes, to get through a preseason, for what it takes to compete. And so I think now more so than ever is to keep that link is very important. And I think as long as they see it and you can kind of vocalize it to them, then they respect it. And for me, that was my biggest thing that I saw from the game. Irrelevant in the game was, as a group, they all went over and applauded the ECS and the other supporters groups after a loss. And that was critical for me. That showed tremendous growth from early in the season to late in the season. So I was very proud of that.
Well, since we're on S2, this is a question I've been wondering about. So the team was very young at the start of the season, didn't have much veteran leadership. How has that changed as the first team's gotten healthy, and they've had a few first-team players able to come down and actually play with the kids?
Great question. And I think, the injury crisis is difficult to judge, but I always thought that S2 should have a pretty healthy first team representation because you have that link again, and then you're not promoting kids too early necessarily, right? I agree in promoting kids that deserve to play a game, and there's a difference between saying coming in and having spot duty or coming in and starting one game and having some bright moments than it is to having like a body of work over an entire season. And that is very difficult to do. And you only do that with mentorship, with other players that you look up to, that you can, rely on and ask questions, and, seeing them actually do it in a game, in training, in practice, in the weight room, on the treatment table, in the community. That is what you really need. And so I think S2 is starting to have that transition, but I think that's what was really, really missing early in the season. Winning is a habit. You don't just show up and winning is a complete habit. It's a lifestyle to get into that mentality, to grind every day, to compete every day, to take care of your body. It's a mentality that I'm not sure a lot of people can get to or realize, but you're in a different state because every single decision you make is based on performing on the weekend. And so you take that into account. And if you're a younger player, you might have a lot more distractions that you're not aware of that could affect your performance on the weekend. And as you have older players in there, they can be, hey, you don't need to do that because that could have, consequences on this. This is what you need to do to be proactive about setting up yourself to perform well on the weekend.
I just got distracted because I was going to make a reference to George, but George is touring the bar right now.
George got
when
curious.
you talk about
George
winning,
has disappeared.
winning
George got
cups,
curious.
winning as a habit.
Where in the world is George the Cascadian?
I'll be
Cup?
here all week.
It's taking a tour.
Putting out an APB.
It's interesting. You talked
George.
about you mentioned the.
Wasn't that the past couple of years?
If you didn't know this, James and I are both the color commentators for S2, so we watch a lot of developmental soccer.
Yeah.
If you look, basically, right up until the World Cup, like even their record is different. From the World Cup ending on, the records has been, I won't call it good, but they had the 5-match home winning or home undefeated run. They're stable. They'd be a mid-table team if they perform like that through an entire season, and you're seeing that from, and they're still starting 16 and 17-year-olds. Kai Briscoe, 17, and he's now a regular on that back line. So they've learned a little bit about the winning. And you saw when a couple weeks ago Daniel Robles came on, and that's a guy that just won the U17 Academy Championship. There's just this one tiny spot where winning for this organization has been a little bit of trouble, and that is with S2.
I feel like that leads me to a good question of outside of watching, obviously, film of yourself and opponents, watching other leagues, what you can take away from that, how important that is in the process.
How important S2 is?
In development. So as a
yes.
young player, just watching other players outside of what they're going to experience.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes to the developmental model and pathway of MLS because it's a different model, right? We necessarily haven't been an export league. We've always been traditionally an import league.
Right.
So now we're talking about creating players that have market value. And now we're seeing it a bit, but you still have players that don't have training comp, which means now you have owners that are investing in the infrastructure of the academy system, but those players could be plucked at any time and you don't get compensated. Anywhere around the world, you have those types of players at 16, 17, 18 that are plucked because of their potential that you have to pay a transfer fee for. You have to pay funds to get that player access to that player.
Right. I may have written about that a little bit. Yeah.
So that's the difficulty, and everywhere around the world, it's an import-export kind of market, or primarily you might just be a team that's just traditionally an export market. Like you build players up till 17, 18, and you want to sell them to the highest bidder and find a good home for them. And that's a difficulty here, I think, in Major League Soccer, and that has affected S2. And I think that just comes with the evolution of our league and soccer in the United States. But without a doubt, I think you'll see more and more players create a lot more value in the marketplace. And you've already seen it from academy players, but now you can, you'll see it on, not only the value they create internally, but externally in the European big league markets. What type of value are they creating for Major League Soccer and their respective USL, MLS teams?
I think kind of where Mark was looking for this a little bit is back when you were a player. Obviously, you watched your own film and you watched the opposing team. Was there a player who you watched because you wanted to integrate his talent into your game? Because I know, like, Christian Roldan watches basically Argentina's 6s and 8s because that's how he wants to play. That Mascherano, that, well, he'll knock you on your ass, but he can also thread a great through ball. That's what Christian watched. Who were the non-MLS athletes that you tried to pick up from?
Great one. I mean, the 1994 World Cup is what really turned me on to soccer. I was maybe 12 years old, at the time. Old. We couldn't afford soccer camps, so I was at home, and that was the first time big-time soccer was on television, regular television, right, like ABC television. And so I remember watching every single game of that World Cup, every single minute, and not having the DVR at the time. So I'd watch every single minute of the first half, go into my garage and mimic everything that I saw, then come back out after halftime and watch every single minute of the second half, and then go back into my garage and mimic everything. So the biggest team that actually turned me on to soccer fully from that World Cup was Brazil. And that takes me on to watching Cafu, not in that 94 World Cup, but, on as I continue to follow Brazil. Cafu and Roberto Carlos were players that I loved to watch. Rivaldo was a player that I loved to watch. I used to skip. I almost failed advanced PE because I used to skip class to come home and watch the Champions League. I literally got
not aware there was
an
advanced PE.
Yeah, it was
first
advanced.
Of all.
It was advanced strength and conditioning, which is great.
Okay,
it was advanced strength and conditioning, and my even more so, my best friend at the time's dad was the teacher. And he goes, and it was based strictly on attendance. And he goes, you are really close to failing. But my mom gave me the green light. She knew how important it was to me. And I literally would come home. I remember coming home and watching the Champions League games on TV. So, I mean, I watched the biggest teams back then, from Real Madrid to AC Milan. Manchester United is probably my most favorite team back then, just because they were well publicized. They were the biggest team that was shown when you were growing up. And you didn't get TV like you did. There was no YouTube. Like, if you were going to watch a game, you got lucky. You timed it well. I had no idea how to look it up. And all of a sudden, I'd have soccer on. Newcastle was big at the time. Manchester was big at the time. And so I watched a lot of players, but I would say Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo, Zinedine Zidane. I mean, that whole generation, David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs. I mean, I tried to take a piece of all of those players and kind of appropriate that and put that into my game.
Who were the right back and right mid on that United team?
Great question. I think it was Irwin was one, and then Neville shifted into the right back position. But I think the long-standing one was Irwin.
Tom and I are trying to make eye contact. We're further away than usual.
I'm just giggling because
sometimes we throw elbows
Adam added the George cam to the upper right corner.
Gives me something to do. Look up and
so we know George is still there.
It's way over there.
Hi, George.
Actually.
How are you?
It's above Dave's head.
James, you spoke
That's
a little
George
bit about
cam.
the academy, just kind of mentioning them briefly, and kind of how youth systems work across the world. Just an observation that had come in from Damon, who's here in the audience tonight and was up in Vancouver. Ton of academy kids in Vancouver Saturday night, right next to the supporter section. And it's like people come in and you recognize faces or gear, and you're like, is that the academy? Mm-hmm. That's the academy. Mm-hmm. Rolled up. That was super, super cool. Because again, like, they probably have other things they could be doing, whether it's playing soccer, practicing, hanging out with their friends, whatever it is, and they all rolled up to Vancouver as well. So whether you're talking about, the straight up youth system, or someone who's maybe a little more senior of a player on S2 who's paying attention to what's going on the big club. It was just neat to see, kind of at all levels or multiple facets, the amount of support or attention that a match in Vancouver brought up. Like, you took some time to leave the country and go to a game, even though we can drive there. And to us in the supporter section, like, that was really... it's like powerful to see, you know, because you're like, wow, you went out of your way just to go to this game, you know, and you could have been doing a million other things in your life.
Right.
So.
No, great point. And as I was playing, it was something that as I got older in my career, I always wanted to be connected to the academy as much as possible. And it was difficult because of the timing, because you trained as professionals, you trained in the morning, and the academy's coming in late in the afternoon to train. And I wish, while I was here in Seattle, that I had more connection to the academy that was, you know, just on the cusp of starting. But that's what it takes. I mean, the academy is essentially the cream of the crop. Those are the elite of the elite within the region and greater area. And those are people that want to someday play for the Sounders or MLS or even, you know, abroad. There was an interesting, I want to say it was a poll or survey taken by U.S. Soccer. I think Tab Ramos was involved. Don't quote me on this, but essentially the gist of it was, you know, this is maybe a few years ago, that the academy players, right, 14, 16, 18, could not name the starting player in their position on the MLS Cup team that they were actually playing for. And for me, that was that was a massive, massive, big disconnect.
Just that they were that.
And I saw that.
Unaware
right.
or just disconnected?
Unaware, and I would say disconnected. So to see the academy team travel up, without a doubt, they know every position, every player. They could, you know, name the starting lineup. That's where you get to a real culture where you have an academy player that can name the entire starting 11, the subs, when the goals were scored, what the big plays were, what the standout players were of that match. That's critical, but not just for a Cascadian match. I'm talking for the entire season on a Wednesday night game at 8 p.m. Can they name that there on Thursday? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's fantastic. And I know a large part of that is to, you know, Smetzer, to get Garth, and to Nichols, who know the importance of developing that culture.
And that's culture. Yeah, it's culture. It's baked in to the organization. Dave, you were going to jump in, I think.
I mean, it was awesome that the academy was there, but I want to point out that what they did was play against the Vancouver Whitecaps residency squad that midday. Went to their hotel, showered, and then went to the game.
It's awesome.
So for them, you know, that was part of their job. And they do that frequently. They go to first-team games at home. When they're on the road, they watch the first team together. The S2 team does that. One of their requirements is to watch first-team games. That's part of their tape. Break down what the first team does. The guy that plays the role that you're learning to play, that's who you pay attention to. And so that's, you know, it's part of their studies, but to have the academy up there was, you know, both good fortune because the academy schedule came out and they had to be in Vancouver that weekend, but they didn't have to go to that game. They could have been the organization made that conscious choice to get them to the game rather than sit at a Holiday Inn in Burnbury and just chill.
And the more and more, when I was at Major League Soccer and we were talking about flights, we were talking about chartered flights, and the idea was to actually fly in, have a chartered flight with the academy teams on there, so that the academy teams could play midday and then be able to watch the first team game to kind of better help create that culture. But I'm sure without a doubt when the schedule came out, you know, they're manipulating their way around to make sure that they have a game Saturday midday so that they can go to that first team game. And I think that's the best way to honestly to grow, is to actually see the first team performing at that capacity and being able to watch it and then judge that on your own performance and just take notes. I mean, that's brilliant stuff.
I know back when you were a Sounder on the field, you were the one with the ball kids at that point. Were guys that you and I are calling. Jalen Marquis was a ball kid. David Olson was a ball kid, because what they did on home games when they were around, it was the academy guys that were doing that work. So they'd be around the sport. And so, you know, Jordan Morris, Olson, who else is that age? Henry Wingo. These are guys that you were a player then, and you were asking when you were leaning over asking for the ball to get that throw in. It's quite likely that the guys that you're now calling their game.
And that would be my only regret with not being as connected to the academy as I was later in my career, because that's important. I mean, I was so influenced by former players or current MLS players just saying hello and giving an autograph, and how, invigorating that was. And so I know that importance of being able to see it on the field, be a ball boy, it'd be incredible.
So I know we've got more gameplay to talk about and stuff like that, but James, you and I have been working on a project. Well, you've been working on a project, and you asked me just to help you with a video.
Yes.
For
You could have
it.
just taken credit right there.
Yeah, I started the whole thing.
Yeah.
I created James.
Bootstrappers.
Anyway, so anyways, we were shooting a video for you, and I found what you were doing really interesting, which is why one of the reasons I wanted you to come down here.
Thank you. Yes.
So we're talking about development. We're talking about all of that. So I figured that's a good time for you to tell us what you're doing.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll be launching very soon, very shortly, jr7soccer.com. Again, jr7soccer.com. And essentially what it is, I've curated and created a methodology in which I feel amplifies a player's development and elevates their play. And I think it starts with nutrition and mental training. And then I also run elite training programs. So I'll run the technical sessions. So that's kind of the methodology. It starts with nutrition, getting a very sound nutritional base so that you can even compete at a training session and then recover properly, compete at a game, recover properly, and then that goes into mental mindset, mental lessons. For me, I would say 60% of the game is mental, if not more. Right, just the ability to handle ups and downs, to compete, to turn the switch on, off, to get in the zone, to play. Like, it's so more mental than people realize. And then I also run them through a professional type style professional session. But going back to the mental side of it, not a lot of people realize what goes in. It's almost, I love using that iceberg analogy. So for a home game, I'll take you through my day, a simple part of my day. So for a home game, we would train on a Thursday. Ziggy liked to train on a Thursday prior to a home game. So we'd train on Thursday, and then we would do our run-through, our walk-through on Friday at Starfire. But on the Thursday, we would do training in the stadium. We would do our training. And as people are kind of leaving, going off the field, I'd be doing some extra work. I would be passing on the wall and just kind of doing a lot of visualizing my success and the team's success for that Saturday evening's game. And then when everyone was gone, I would actually lay on the ground at CenturyLink in the areas of the field that I would play at, that I felt like I could do the most damage in the game. So a lot of that time was kind of at half field or just past half field, and just meditate and visualize my success on that field for 10 or 15 minutes.
What do you see when you're visualizing your success? Like, what is
Great
that
question.
Mental image that you're giving
Fantastic.
yourself?
Connecting passes to the right people, winning tackles, winning air balls, being strong in the tackle, getting services off in good spots. So things of that sort is really what I'm celebrating with this ECS and the supporters group.
So it's the whole thing from
whole
kickoff
thing.
to walking out of the tunnel to that throwing your hands up in the air with the flames and everything. Yeah.
Hear it, smell it, like the whole thing. You want to try to bring all those senses in. And so that's what I would do for a large majority of on those games. And then I did a lot of yoga as a player, and not traditional yoga. I would do gentle yoga, and that allowed for a more meditative state, just to get your body in a position that was more restful, allowed you to think. And all of it was visualizing. I literally visualized my success, visualized the team's success before every game. And so the mental side of the game for me is very important. And then the nutritional capacity. I think as sports data becomes more and more, sports science is absolutely essential and critical. And that goes back, a small segue into, I said the team would go undefeated, and that's absolutely true through the MLS Cup. The sports science is going to be behind that, because for the 12 games, you've had older guys put in a lot of output. Right, and so you're going to have to get into, Smetzer's going to have to start managing minutes for certain guys once he feels comfortable, because to go from now through MLS Cup is a
it's a gruel. It's a
grind, unbelievable. And so now you're going to have to start using the sports science, the data, to actually manage these guys' minutes when you can, And even if you're taking a guy off 5 minutes before the game, like
Totally.
those minutes matter, and then training will be, you'll try to keep it at a high level, but they'll start doing that in training and stuff like that. But right now, they're on such a fantastic flow and have created such fantastic momentum. You're probably doing very little to disrupt that, but you're always mindful of kind of the nutritional sports science aspect of it. I know that we used to do Omega Wave. So Omega Wave is literally used to connect to like little droid, stickies used to be put all over your body. And it used to give off a reading of your nervous system. So this is after a game. It used to give off a reading of your nervous system. If you were in the red, Ziggy you were out. You were not training, or you would not play.
What's it actually?
It's a mega wave. So it's measuring your nervous system and how well you recover after a grueling training session or a grueling game. Because if it's in the red, you're more susceptible to injury.
Yeah.
You're more susceptible to injury. If you're in the yellow, then it's like, okay, you'll do the team warm-up, you'll do the technical portion, you'll do the possession, but then we cut you, and now you go do your recovery protocol. So a lot of it's managing minutes.
Just because I'm kind of nerdy, like, is it measuring like electrical pulses? Yeah.
Yeah, it's measuring your nervous system. So you have two nervous systems, and I'm not going to get coded on what it is. Yeah, two nervous systems that they're actually measuring, and they're able to use that data to figure out. So if you're on the red, if you were on this nervous, if you were connected and you were reported red, and it only takes about 3 to 5 minutes to get a report back, they shut you down. Because if you're in the red, you're more susceptible to injury, right? You're more susceptible to injury. So now they put you through a customized recovery protocol. So my recovery protocol is going to be much different than, say, a Jeff Park or Johnny Canadian Hurtado's recovery protocol, because we have different body types. So you almost have your own customized recovery protocol. And this was Dave Tenney that brought all this. And so now you go and do that protocol. If you're in the yellow, like I said, maybe you go halfway through training, and they taper it, and now you go into the locker room and do your recovery protocol. If you're green, which I was a lot of the time, most of the time, if not every time, then you just train as normal, and then you just kind of still manage that. So now they're actually gauging all those data points on field in real time. So now the sports science has gone through the roof. So that's why I'm saying sports science is going to be just as critical in the end, and it's not a surprise that the two teams that spend the most historically on sports science have made it to the MLS Cup 2 years in a row. Toronto and Seattle Sounders are absolutely keen on the sports science part of the game.
So what puts you in the red? Is it just too many minutes?
It's just your body type. Honestly, it's your body type, and it's the readings letting you know if your body's like recovered enough. So say after a 90 minutes, say after this game in Vancouver, all those guys we connected, and it's has your body will tell you, are you recovered enough to train? Period. Are you recovered enough to train? If you're not, then they put you into your recovery protocol so that you can get into the green, and then that means you're ready to train.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of like practice today. None of the starters were outside whatsoever. It was only the guys who were on the bench or didn't travel. Everyone else was inside.
Can there be a dedicated system for this specifically for hamstring injuries? Because
just to the hamstrings. Just to the hamstrings.
That's a great point.
Like I'm 80% serious.
No. No, that's a great point. At the league office, and I know at clubs, there was an emphasis on trying to mitigate the hamstring injuries because it was putting key players out of big games, like across the league.
Yeah. We joke
across
being Sounders. If you really look around, it's a lot of players. Yeah.
So and that's the number one, and that comes into prevention. That's prehab. That's your prehab work that you do prior. And a lot of those hamstring injuries are going to come from, not in a bad way, like international players that maybe don't have the sports science that the States does or how progressive it is. And so hamstring injuries prevention is a big thing in soccer. I mean, but that's not just your hamstring. That's your glutes. That's your low back. I mean, that's your core. I mean, there's so many muscle parts that equate to that, flaring up that hamstring that it's interesting.
There's a question from the Maximum Dorcas, and my microphone's really turned down. I got it. I've got actually volume.
Do you know how to fix that?
I do.
I hope so.
The question is, will your website be focused on youth, or will it be for all ages? And I'm assuming
the
question is because like Mark here wants to up his pub league game.
Yep.
Waking up would be a start.
Pub League moved back to 9 a.m. this season, and it's affected.
Not being hungover. Step one.
I also didn't go to Pub League on Sundays. So.
He's not the only one. And Tom got home before me.
But yes, is it primarily directed
Primarily
at youth
youth.
who are...
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be primarily youth soccer. So it's going to be elevate your game, learn how to eat, think, and train like a pro. And so I'll take them through eating protocols, right? The nutrition, the sports science
Right,
part,
yeah.
the mental training. I have a digital online mental training platform called Pro Performance. And then I'll actually take them through a professional training session in small group setting. So those will kind of be the three offerings. That will be my niche in the market. But for me, it's very underserved and a very, very critical part of the game. Absolutely critical. I've seen at the highest level, I've seen academy teams not recover correctly with the nutrition that they need after a game within that 30-minute window, and they still have 2 more games after that. And that was as the director of player relations and competition at Major League Soccer. We would go to the GA Cup, and we would see teams come in that have flown in. They have a big game, and there's U.S. Soccer's there, scouts, MLS scouts are there, we're there, and they play a game. And then their recovery protocol is not what I would deem as a professional recovery protocol, and they have 2 more games in that in that stretch. And so this is where that helped implement that in the mental side of the game. You'll see it at all levels. Guys' heads go down, guys' heads go up. The biggest players in the game just react right away, and that's what the Sounders are doing now. I mean, their reactions have been fantastic. Their individual and their group reactions have been fantastic. And that's what you see as kind of been an uptick in their performance over the last 12 games.
So I kind of goes along with that. Are you going to be working with anybody? Because I know we've seen Eddie's been working with a lot of players down in Florida, which is it's always fun to see because I mean just his passion for the game.
Because he's no joke.
Yeah, he's great. His stuff is fantastic, and so I'll be collaborating with a lot of people, more so affiliates. So looking for EJ to become an affiliate. Most of my stuff, to scale it, will be online. So it will be me on a Zoom call, Zoom webinar, going over like a nutrition lesson and how that can directly apply to youth soccer. So it's all youth soccer specific. So it's youth soccer specific nutrition, youth soccer specific mental training, and then the actual training will be youth soccer specific. So there'll be webinars for the nutrition and the mental training aspects, and then there'll be a select group. I'll be taking on no more than 12 clients to actually do the small group training sessions.
And you're talking about individuals, not teams? Or
both, yeah.
Both? Okay.
All are welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a digital platform, so they can sign up for each program that they want.
So, I do have close to half a soccer team.
Literally.
You're my hero.
Children.
I don't know how you do that.
But
You're my
unfortunately,
hero.
none of them care about sports at all. I mean, they'll go to games with me, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, what can I do as a friend of yours?
Yep.
What can we do to help
Yep.
you push this out there?
Yeah, perfect. When it launches, just to kind of repost it, retweet
Yep.
it, and surely your network is a soccer family of some sort or knows a soccer
Totally.
family, and that's that's my demographic. You soccer players. I mean, 10 to 18 years old is going to be my demographic.
And when do you think you're launching? What's your goal?
Scheduled to launch as soon as you get me those videos.
Damn it. So that's on me.
I'm just joking. Next Monday, on Monday, an ambitious launch would be Friday, but I'm assuming it's going to be Monday.
So
there's a lot of stuff that goes
And
into
what's the
launching a
website?
business. jr7soccer.com.
What's the JR stand for?
James Riley just acquired some pre-roll and post-roll on SonarFeed.
Excellent.
I believe that's what just happened right there.
So there's the link. I put it up there for y'all. It's jrsoccer7.com. Yeah, go to it when he launches and tweet it and tell your friends.
There you go. Much appreciated.
So I've kind of just a global question about S2. Garth had an interview recently in The Athletic where he kind of went over his kind of program for S2. What do you see as maybe 2 of the things that the team needs to do to turn this recent run of increased results into a more competitive day in, day out on the pitch performance going into, say, the next 12 to 18 months?
This is for S2 specifically?
Yeah, S2 specifically.
Yep. For me, their roster they need to have key veteran players. So now they have David Estrada. For me, I think you need 3 to 5 David Estradas, to be very honest, because that's the only way that you can really link that culture of winning. David Estrada was a player, and he'll tell you, I think he's a fantastic player. He put together a fantastic career, and I know his background, a similar background, come up from humble beginnings to then make it to a top university and then play professional soccer. And now he has the opportunity to give back, and he loves doing that. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with my business launch. But you need more than one person, because you need someone on the defensive line, you need someone in the midfield line, you need someone in the attacking line that can that has walked the walk, that has talked the talk, that can put their arm around you, right? I put my arm around David Estrada when he got here. He'll tell you that 100%. I put my arm around him, and I remember a practice and a training almost very vividly. It was a training session where we did a 4-goal game. If you've been in training, you've done it. When Ziggy was there, he did a 4-goal game, and this usually led up into a first-team game. And I was right back, and David Estrada was right midfielder. And I love to compete. So whether it was a game or training session, I literally competed the same exact way. It was 5v2, whether it was the agility session, whatever it was, I was competing at the highest level. And David Estrada and I dominated the right side of the field. We dominated, we scored multiple goals, assists, everything. And I literally, after the game, after they called the training session, and my adrenaline's going because I know how important those benchmarks are to lead to a performance on a Saturday night. And I start going crazy, and I'm cussing, and he probably thinks I'm mad at him, but I was doing it in excitement, and be like, that's how you fucking train every fucking day. Like, that's your standard. Now you know, right? It takes a player to experience it to know their standard. I was like, that's your standard. So every single training session you have from now on, you will know how to judge it, because I'm telling you, as a veteran, as someone who's won multiple championships, has competed in the playoffs, Champions League, everything else, that is your standard. And so if it's below that, you'll know. If it's like that or above, then you'll know, and that's how you can feel comfortable with your day's work. And so for me, you need more David Estradas. You see his work when he comes onto the field. He's a bit different. You see Lamar Nagle when he's come up. You've seen, even Harry Wingo being a second-year player, he's done well. So for me, you need that link. So you need more swing players. And I know they were in an injury crisis early in the season, but you need more swing players to be able to let them know this is how it is at the first team. Like, this doesn't fly. You giving a ball away and not reacting is not going to get you anywhere close to the first team. That's going to get you in the 300 level, paying your own way to the games, right? So that's the difference. And so for me, it's just a veteran presence, honestly.
So sprinkle a couple more veterans, or
Swing
even
players. Swing players,
say 22 to 25
Yep.
in that range.
Yep.
Interesting.
And I think that's something that's probably unique to baseball in the United States, and probably the current soccer scene, with a lot of the MLS clubs having affiliates in USL, where it's players that aren't necessarily going to get minutes all season, or they're coming back from injury, or whatever those things are. I know, as somebody who grew up following a ton of baseball, that is something you heard a lot. That's sort of like the joke behind a lot of baseball movies, is it's like the aging veteran who goes down for the one last shot or whatever,
right,
but like genuinely is there to like teach people,
right,
or sort of give them hope and share wisdom, or whatever it is that they do. And you look at somebody like an Estrada who operates at a pretty high level.
He's got double-digit goals down there right now.
And that was something where he was signed to S2. And in some of the other duties that he has within the organization, and everybody was like,
You said duties.
What are you for? Yes.
Have you met his?
He has 37 children.
37. Oh, we went up since last time we talked about this.
He's been busy.
So, that's great to hear that that's something you see as like valuable overall,
right,
and not that I would ever think, or I think anybody would ever think that wasn't helpful. But there's also the flip school of thought to that, especially when you think about baseball, or even like the limited number of spots in a USL club, especially those affiliated with MLS teams, that if you're a kid going, well, I could take that player's spot, somebody kind of up and coming who's 16, 17, 18 years old. But if like greater good, kind of long term, that is something that makes those teams smart, viable,
right,
great places to go.
Right.
I think maybe it is not a marketing, it's like a messaging conversation where you're like, we're committed to not just winning all the time, losing all the time, whatever it is, giving people minutes. It's like we're committed to like teaching people how to play great soccer. Right. And if people recognize that they want to be on a team that a Lamar Nagel, who's been out there and was devastating with Dempsey and Oba for years, is on your team, and you might actually get on the field before him and see that as like a great opportunity to learn.
Right.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just from the outside, like figuring out the best way to convey that perspective to people who are looking at like, what academy do I want to find my way into? That's great. So if that's like philosophy coming from the top down, that's impressive to hear. So I think that's something maybe we all saw as opportunity, or something we have maybe unique versus a lot of other clubs in this country, but it's great to hear that it's actually like a real thing,
right?
That has some value,
right? No, I appreciate that. I think you articulated that very well. Is right now, David Estrada is in double-digit goals with spot duty, and so there's no one on S2 within his position that's taking his spot, right? So you've hit it, and this has been my argument: is you have to create competition for those spots. You can't progress young players essentially too early if they don't deserve it. There should be players in front of them. So say you do well, the U17, U18 academy doing fantastic. There should be a player in front of you on the USL team that is starting games, that needs to put food on the table, that is been fighting for a position for 2-3 years. That's how you create competition. If you look at the Sounders first team, their uptick is because there's competitions for spots. I mean, and there is a lot. Literally, you have had the best player in U.S. soccer retire because there's competition for spots. Clint Dempsey, right? One of the best. A friend of mine, an absolute legend in the game. He will go down in absolute history. What he's done for U.S. soccer and the Sounders is absolutely astounding. But essentially, he said, listen, if I'm not going to start and I don't have an opportunity to essentially at this moment compete for a spot, then I'm good to go. He's one that's used to being a starter. He's not going to settle for a reserve role. And so that's been my argument. Is there enough competition? I think the USL Division III is great because you're promoting a U17 player to the USL, and some of those players, without a doubt, rightly deserve to be there, but then some of them you're almost force-feeding the system. And so that's the difference between you can't be satisfied without making the playoffs, because that's part of the development for me. Learning to win and make the playoffs is part of the development. You can have development and not make right. This project that we're talking about that they have in place is like 3 to 5 years down the road.
Yeah, it's
a long-term project. But we go back to the winning mentality and make it like making the playoffs when I was with the Sounds for 3 years. That was like a minimum standard. That was a bare minimum. Like, it's like, what seed are we going to get when we make the playoffs, right? So we even changed our rhetoric and our thought process. It's not like we hope to get into the playoffs. It's like we are getting into the playoffs. What seed? How do we create home field advantage in the playoffs? And that's what you see now. The big difference between the first team is there was a lot of hope. I hope we'll win this game early on. Now they're going onto the field expecting to win. And you see with the S2 team, there's a lot of hope. It's like in the air. It's like so very hopeful. It should be you are walking onto the field knowing that you're going to get a result. In any way possible, you're going to get a result. For me, that's the biggest part of development, is knowing how to get results, home or away.
So we have a question from somebody you might know, a guy named Steve. He wants us to ask you, who is the hardest player you've ever faced in training? It's actually a multi-part question.
Without a
and
doubt.
Is that player English/African? And does he have dreads now?
Is that a real? Did he really send that?
Wait, there's a lot going on. George is taking a call.
Yeah.
George is taking a call.
What is even happening?
Why is George?
That is awesome.
George,
right,
George, we're running a show here.
Let's come back. Let's come back to questions on the show.
That is
hilarious. Can we get to Steve's question?
Yeah. So Steve's question: who is the hardest player you've ever faced in training?
Great question.
Yossi.
And is it Steve? I think that's what he was getting at.
I mean, I would say so. Yeah, I would give it without a doubt. I mean, Steve, we all know is a fantastic player, and for me, I would test myself against him. I mean, he's a one-on-one, an absolutely incredible player, and so I prided myself on, when I went into a game, I prided myself on dominating my duel. So if I had a left midfielder, I would watch countless hours of film on this player. We had a tool called Match Analysis where you could see every touch of that player for every game that they've played, going back to like 10 years ago. So I would watch the last 3 games, whether it was home or away. If they were coming to Seattle, I would see if he played in Seattle before, and you could literally bring that game up on a software that we had and watch every single touch, and then watch how that player received the ball. So is he receiving it directly from the left back? Is it going from the center back to the midfielder? Then he's getting it. So now I have the patterns of him receiving the ball. Now I start judging, is he left-footed? Is he right-footed? Is he faster than me? Is he stronger than me? How technically gifted is he? Does he like physical play? So there's so many variables that go in, right? And then I analyze that and then kind of go in with a game plan. Is he a key contributor to goals and assists? So now I know, okay, maybe my game this weekend is not to really get forward. If I do, it's to pick and choose when to really get forward. But essentially, I'm going to be right by this guy the entire time, and I'm going to let him know it's going to be a battle, because off the ball, I'm poking him, I'm stepping on him, I'm grabbing him, things of that sort.
All within the rules.
All within the rules. And Steve for me was fantastic, because I think he elevated his game. He came in as a rookie. Had some spot duty, made some great noise, but I think his sophomore campaign was unbelievable. I mean, I remember celebrating a lot of goals that he scored and a lot of assists, and I know that because I used to drive him to training his entire rookie season. I don't know if he put that in there. So, no, he
I think we loved your use of rookie, and I drove him. And
Yeah, Steve
That's
the rookie
great.
who couldn't drive.
That's great.
Basically.
That's what I get from
No,
that.
he's a
That's what I get
fantastic
from that
player.
story.
Fantastic player. He does have a special project coming out. I do have a sneak peek, and we were watching it tonight. So thanks, Steve.
Ooh.
I think we've heard of
Little
rumor.
teaser there.
Oh, that is correct. I do recall something about that.
He sent me
Basically,
the sneak peek, so we
entirety
have
of
the
his
exclusive
tease.
at the Riley household, and that we'll be watching tonight.
94 minutes of stepovers. Because that dude rolled up in his
Yeah,
own
right.
match, steps on the field, and just does stepovers just to dust people. And that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Dubstep overs.
I tried to step over once and I tripped myself.
Did you fall on the ball?
Okay, but all right, I'll answer the question truthfully. I'll lay out a group of players. Steve Zakawani was fantastic. Taylor Twellman was fantastic. I've never seen a pure goal scorer than him. Right foot, left foot, head, and just an insatiable desire. Clint Dempsey was fantastic. My days in New England. Exactly how he is now is exactly how he was back then. He has the biggest switch of any player that I've ever played with, meaning him and I would go fishing after training session. We would literally hang out and play video games and rap over beats. But when it was time to go onto the field for training, if we stepped over the dotted lines, it was like a metamorphosis. I tell people this all the time, and I have full respect for that, because off the field, I think he's an absolutely fantastic family man, a great friend. I think he is a remarkable player, remarkable person. He's a very simple person, but you step onto the field and it's literally a metamorphosis. He goes into it. It's like Fight Club, honestly, right? It really is. And then Landon Donovan's obviously up there. Robbie Keane was fantastic, but my ultimate, I have 2 favorite players of all time. Dwayne DeRosario is in there. 2 favorite players all time that I would love to have on my team any given day: Shari Joseph in his prime and Ozzie Alonso in his prime, without a doubt. Freddie Montero gets an honorable mention because he was brilliant as well.
You brought up the New England Revolution, and I just wanted your thoughts on Steve Ralston, who is now the interim coach down in San Jose because they finally gave up on the guy. But
Yes, great reference.
him as a player,
Yes.
what was he like?
Yep.
Because that's for most Sounders fans, we don't understand.
Great reference.
As a central midfielder, he was dominant for
literally
about
just-
half a decade.
Right. I was literally just going through memory lane. So he was one of those. Why I say linking teams is so important. Back then, you had just one team. You had 30 players. They made the roster, but you had your developmental roster, which means you could make $12,500 a year, or you could make $16,000 or $18,500 a year. If you made the senior roster, which I was fortunate to do, and I thought I hit the lotto, you were making $24,000 a year, right? And starting every game. But I knew that was the process. I didn't care about the money. I was playing professional soccer in stadiums. Steve Ralston was one of those guys that was sharing nuggets of wisdom. Jay Heaps, nuggets of wisdom. Taylor Twellman, nuggets of wisdom. Matt Reese, nuggets of wisdom. Steve Nicol, a Liverpool legend, nuggets of wisdom. Paul Mariner, an Arsenal England legend, nuggets of wisdom. But Steve Ralston in general, he was an unbelievable family man. I remember he would invite us over to his house. He would take us fishing, Clint and I. He had 2 kids at the time. He was the assist leader and minutes leader, or he had multiple records. But he just told me, I remember this, and this is what I leaned on. He said, your preparation for the next training session begins directly after this training session ends. And I took that to heart. So he goes, how you recover, how you do your cool down, how you do your recovery protocol. That means you shower, you ice bath, you get food in you, you get your massage, you go home, you take a nap, you rest, whatever you do. He goes, your preparation for the next training session, and it has to be at the same output that you just had for this training session, begins the second this training session is over. And so Steve Ralston and I, fantastic player, fantastic person, fantastic friend. Had an opportunity to watch him play prior to getting to Major League Soccer, and then to be his teammate was phenomenal. I mean, I think he's an absolute legend. I think he knows the game very well, and I think he'll do well in these last 6 games of this.
If I remember correctly, he's one of 2 players with 100 or more assists in the league.
Right? Yeah, unbelievable.
He was he and Shalry, that central midfield pairing was it.
Yep.
Every other team in the league wanted to have 2 center mids like those 2.
Absolutely. So that was my. I had a lot of mentors, so I think that connection is huge. To just have a team of all freshmen that are playing in a varsity league doesn't it just doesn't equate to
You need a bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, in there. So slight, and by slight I mean a billion% non sequitur. But we got another question, and we want to talk a little bit more about the game this past weekend.
Oh,
wow! And a little bit about Wednesday, but ask you some questions if you're cool with that.
Really
So Hunch Punch in the chat asks, with the world and political climate changing, what had to be done to allow Nico Ladero back into the United States after committing a straight-up murder on the field in front of thousands of witnesses?
That's hilarious.
And we actually have footage of that
Okay.
right now. And it was like it started and then it just got progressively worse.
Who was that just fell down? Who was
Breck
that fell
Shea.
down?
Breck Shea.
Formerly known as
I don't know because he's now dead.
Broken Shea.
That's the chop. That chop, I was getting that chop from Preki back in the day, by the way. I had an opportunity to play against him, and that chop was unbelievable. That was against a Preki chop, that's like a 4 or 5, honestly. It's still fantastic. But that Preki chop, I'm telling you right now,
And it's just,
was
it was just dirty. And there were a
was.
couple things that happened to him. And I got to say, in the section, he got subbed in, and we all started chanting, "There's only one Zach Scott." And it came through on the television. And I got a text, and just because I have the ECS account and I do stuff for ECS, I had my phone on disturb, and it's buzzing.
Notification.
And I pulled it out, and I was like, oh no, what happened? And then we saw Zach Scott's wife pull her phone out because they were sitting in front of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's texting Zach Scott right now. And we had seen him earlier, and
That's
the kids were there,
awesome,
and
yeah.
they were laughing. And Breck Shea could not have been happy about
That's
that.
funny.
But that was disgusting.
Yeah.
And we've seen some stuff out of Nico, and in past
Taking a
years,
look at
Marco
it.
Papa and Victor Rodriguez, and a lot of the Latin American players just have these disgusting, amazing ball skills that I dream of having. But that was twice in like 4 seconds on national television level. Like,
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I was watching the replay of the second goal, and Rui Diaz does a dummy step over
That's funny.
with the open goal.
Oh, yeah. It was brilliant.
That was former DP Breck Shea.
Former
DP, Breck Shea.
But that was just amazing, and I think we like to talk about the Cascadia matches. You never know what you're going to get. Like any team could be first, last, in the middle, whatever, and it's just all-out war. And even that second half, like, Breck Shea was dangerous multiple times in that last 10, 15 minutes. He actually had a couple of moments of danger.
Yeah, he put some balls in.
But, like, to see that kind of performance from, you know, any player on the field is just fantastic. And I think this is where we feel like we're spoiled week after week after week. Because it's anybody subs on and pulls it out and like figures out what the passion and kind of determination is behind. I mean, players want to win every week, but when they see the things the same way, even players who've didn't grow up anywhere near Seattle or Portland or Vancouver or whatever are like, oh, you hate them? Cool, I'm in. And for me, I was one of the people that got to collect the Cascadia Cup on the field after the match.
Awesome.
And Raul Ruidiaz is 10 feet away from us, and he's just got this grin, and he's like, do I ask for the trophy? Do I just stand here and watch? And he's just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And it was so neat to see a player of his caliber first time doing it, like, all in.
Yeah.
You know, aside from him destroying people on the field.
So let's get to questions, but before we get to questions, Will Bruin has a request of everybody in the audience. He wants you to give us a thumbs up.
Did that actually happen? Like in real life?
He called me.
Oh, okay. Thumbs up?
Actually, he called George while that's who George was talking to.
All right,
Yeah,
it
so,
all
yeah,
is
so
coming together now.
He wants us.
So thumbs up?
Yeah, thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up. Thank you.
We can do that.
Thumbs up, Will Bruin.
So, are we gonna?
Yeah, let's do SonarFeed questions. We haven't.
You can go first.
You've never actually been on the show, so we have a set of questions that are extremely serious.
Oh.
And this will determine the rest of your life.
Got ya.
So the first question is the standard. The best is. Why are Samoas the best Girl Scout cookie?
No.
Thank
you. What your favorite Girl Scout
Absolutely
cookie
not
is?
the question.
And why is it Thin Mints?
Girl
And why is
Scout
it
cookie?
Samoa? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Girl Scout cookie, Samoas or Thin Mints?
Interesting.
No, the question is, what is the favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Okay.
It's
No, the
not
question
Samoas
is,
or
why
Thin
is the
Mints.
Samoa your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
You don't have to like one of theirs two. You can like a different one, like tagalongs.
Yes. A little context to that before I answer. The MLS soccer headquarters in Manhattan actually is in the same building as the Girl Scouts of America. Just a little bit.
You mean
So
they've
we
got
all
unlimited
know.
access?
The peer pressure in the lobby must just be astounding.
Yeah, right?
Like, are you even allowed to
I
have
would
your
yeah,
Girl
right.
Scout in the lobby? That seems unfair.
No. They weren't there. Corporate offices. I would say mint chocolate chip.
Like the Thin Mints?
Thin Mints.
Okay.
Thin Mints.
Thin Mints.
Yes.
I mean, if I've had them like
Adam,
a long
what's your-
time
what's your-
ago.
what-
Wait, there's debate happening in the
A lot
Riley.
of controversy going on right here.
It was
Jessica, what is the correct answer?
yeah, a
She's
long
wondering
time
if
ago.
he's
I mean,
even
in
had
my
a Girl Scout
lifetime,
cookie.
yes.
At some point in James
I've lived a
Riley's
very
life, he's
eventful
had a
life.
Girl
Yeah,
Scout
I've had a
cookie.
lot
Jessica
of
says,
Anyway, he didn't say Samoa,
And
so
ice
the show's
cream.
over.
No, and those.
And those, whatever they are.
Yeah, and those.
welcome to someone
It would be
who's
good
gone
if we
through
had a
media.
taste- I think this question should have like a taste test.
James
A
Riley has
blind
had
taste
media
test where
training,
we can
as you
take
can see
them.
here.
Just keeps them on hand all the time.
So, I mean, let's just get this one out of the way. Has your home or office ever been raided by the FBI?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
After tonight?
Depends on what cookies the FBI likes.
What's your favorite taco? Style and then place.
Oh,
Oh.
favorite taco?
Yeah, don't type it.
You know, like al pastor.
Crunchy
carnitas?
from Taco Bell.
You're leading the witness.
would just
Crunchy?
say-
Who are you?
Lingua?
The show's over.
I would just say.
Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box.
Oh man.
Taco taco?
I would just say a soft shell chicken taco.
You like chicken? That's good.
Chicken's a valid
I think
answer.
we'll allow that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Flour or corn tortilla?
He says
Flower.
soft.
Flower. Yeah, I like flower.
What are the next? Come on. What else we got? We got Biggie or Tupac.
Oh.
Oh, it's just warming up.
Love that. Love that. Tupac. Dear Mama. One of my
Surprising
favorites.
answer.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Just more so. I actually wrote a paper at Wake Forest University on Tupac, and I've been looking for years to get that. I haven't found it. 30 pages.
Oh, wow.
On Tupac in relation to it was African American rhetoric class, and it was on Tupac and
At what university?
At Wake Forest University, and just the dichotomy of the two. You could have kind of Dear Mama and Keep Your Head Up, as opposed to the other titles of the other.
Oh, yes.
Right? Which I understood, but I wrote a paper on it, and I thought it was like the biggest masterpiece of my lifetime at that moment. I can't get it anymore.
It's on a floppy disk somewhere.
It's on a the 5 and a quarter.
Floppy disk is even before us.
Exactly.
I've got a novel on a floppy
So
disk somewhere.
it would be Tupac for me.
Your
Love that
favorite
Thank you.
purchase.
Your beers are so cute. I actually appreciate that you drink cold beer, unlike everyone else who's like, let's get a liter.
The funny thing is, it ends up all being the same price.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, keeping
Anyway,
a small beer.
you were asking a question.
Favorite purchase under $100 this year, and Sophie the giraffe doesn't count.
Oh, that was gonna be mine. That was good. That was funny. That was
Someone is creepy on the internet.
We didn't purchase that. That was a gift.
Oh, okay.
I would say we'll keep it in Seattle. She wore it yesterday, but it was the first piece of baby clothing that I purchased by myself, and it was from Pike's Place Market. And I happened to be there. I had a meeting, and then I swung by, and I got Brooklyn James a awesome kind of blue whale onesie with organic cotton, and I supported the Pike's Place Market, and it had a matching hat, matching onesie, and matching socks.
Does it come in 5'7" and well overweight?
Dave Clark is in.
It was pretty
for.
I feel bad, like rapid firing after that. I was like, I kind of want to just sit here and reminisce over Dave Clark in a onesie.
Tom actually had a follow up to Biggie and Tupac too.
We were asked
One
to
Nation.
Biggie, Tupac, or Deuce.
Oh wait, related.
Deuce was nice. I'm not
Deuce
gonna
or
lie.
Zach?
He was nice. So that's how we connected. Honestly, to go back, we connected because my best friend in Colorado loved Texas rap, and Deuce is from Texas, and so we connected because he found out I knew what Texas rap was.
Chopped and
Screwed,
Yeah.
Swisher House, all that stuff. So that's what we would. That's actually one of our connections.
Paul Wall.
I had never heard that term
there
until
you go.
tonight.
There you go. No, seriously. Oh my gosh, this guy's fantastic. Yeah, it was Paul Wall, Chameleonaire. It was DJ Screw. All
No,
those.
they were from Texas.
That was East Coast, West Coast, and they'd be Third Coast. No, like that was the
Texas
thing.
Coast. No, I think they would
Coast.
claim Texas Coast.
Because like there was a little New Orleans
Right.
had a little scene, and then obviously Houston.
Yeah.
And
No, we
They were like-
literally were freestyling. I remember the one interactions that Dempsey and I had. We went to a team function, which we had all the rookies had to sing a song, and we chose to sing on top of the bar Backstreet Boys, and it was one of the Backstreet Boys' all-time greats. I don't remember That Way, right? One of those.
I Want It That
and
Way.
then I Want It That Way. And then
the
in the
MTV
car
guy.
driving home, Deuce and I, Clint and I, were rapping over Swisher House.
Okay,
because
wait a
it was
sec.
funny.
Did Taylor have like a cell phone capable of recording that at the time?
No, I wish. Like those days would have been.
I don't know
those
if
would
you
have been
do
pretty
wish,
epic.
though.
Yeah.
Because somebody tweeted us a video.
'Cause
I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Yeah.
Of you being pranked by.
That was VHS. That's old school. That was like VHS.
So you and Deuce as rookies sang Backstreet Boys.
He was in his second year. I was a
Second year.
rookie.
Okay.
Yeah. Myself and Michael Parkhurst, Jeff Lewinowitz, and a couple others. But those
And
are the
Deuce
guys.
had a lot of hair.
He did. He did.
That's changed a little bit.
Just a bit. So, of historical figures that you admire,
Yep.
which one of them would you want to go in a bouncy house with?
Oh wow. bouncy house with a historical figure.
Any historical figure.
Any.
Yeah.
Breck Shea.
Dead or
He's definitely historical now.
Yes.
Former
say
DP.
dead.
Former DP.
Yes.
Here lies Breck Shea.
I watched him fall.
Died
He bounced.
from nutmeg.
He bounced.
He's just flopping around as the house bounces.
Let's not distract from the
Oh,
task at
man.
hand here.
Yeah, no, that was good.
Okay, so I don't want to tell you the most common answer because
Yeah.
you'll probably follow up with it.
Yeah. No, I won't, but tell me.
I think the most
TDR?
common answer right now has been Abe
Abraham
Lincoln.
Yeah,
Lincoln.
absolutely.
Who would
Yeah, I
pop
wasn't
the
gonna
And
bouncy
it's
house.
not close.
No, it's. I think it's because he's pointy and people expect to like pop it with his elbow or something.
That's actually part of the reason I chose Helen of Troy.
Wait, she's pointy?
In many images of what people think Helen of Troy would have looked like, she is wearing pointy garb. It's a thing.
You learn something new every day.
So, James Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Troy.
I would say. Oh my gosh, that's a tough one.
Do you want us to come back?
Yeah, come back, please.
Okay. Dave Clark has a question.
What was the last book you read?
Great question. I read a lot of personal development books. The last one, and I listen to a lot on tape, on audio.
So that counts. That counts.
Okay.
What was the last on
It
audio?
was
And you listen on tape?
several.
Was tape?
Well, I used to. Audio now.
Okay.
Yeah, audio.
Real to
Audible. Audible. And I do get abstracts. So it's more like a 5-page synopsis of the novel or the book. The last book I read, which pertains to my business that I will going to be launching, was Expert Secrets. That was the last one I've read. I read the hard copy and actually listened to the Audible.
I always find I'm horrible at reading comprehension, like not comprehension, but like recollection.
Yep.
But after I read it and then listen to it,
Yep.
then it's like cemented forever.
Funny.
They're-
I was
both
opposite.
things- both things.
Yeah,
happen.
I'm opposite. I'm a visual learner. I'm opposite. So I can listen to it in my commute. It's funny. As we were commuting here, I go to turn on one of my Audibles or one of my podcasts,
right.
and the missus is like, no, we can't do that right now. We have to look like I can't handle that. We have to listen to the Seahawks game or something. I go, no, this is a university on wheels. This is what I do. She's like, you can do that another time. But what I do, I listen to a lot of Bob Proctor, a lot of Jim Rohn, which are just like personal development gurus that I listen to, Audible books, and I'll do it on repeat. For those two guys in particular, I'll do it just on repeat. But I found out I was a visual learner because I listened to the Expert Secrets 3 times on Audible and then started reading it, and it was a totally new comprehension. And so I was able to take notes.
But it was
Both.
that
It was
dual.
both,
Once you
yeah.
have both,
Yep.
that's similar.
When the James Riley biopic is made, who plays James Riley if John Legend's
John
already
Legend's
booked?
not available.
Denzel, an old James Riley, like as a Denzel talking about his younger days.
Denzel's going to be in both your movie and Steve's movie.
It will be, but it will be John Legend, and
Denzel.
it will be James Riley, the musical, the rock opera. Actually.
He'll get another
soccer songs.
Grammy.
Yeah, all supporter songs will be in the music.
So there's actually a question. There's a question. This isn't our normal SonarFeed question. This is a question from the audience. Would you actually give us a rap right now?
Oh. Like a freestyle rap? Like a freestyle rap?
Yeah.
Is there a beat?
You're asking. We're mostly all white.
Then yeah,
I
no
have,
beat.
Spotify. We can get
Yeah.
thrown off the
No
internet
beat,
again.
no rap. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
What free beats would you like?
Freebeats.com. Yeah, that's not
I will do a beat. Zakawani and I will come back and do a beat. It's funny. We
I'm-
the other day.
Oh,
and do a rap.
You and
Do a
Steve
rap.
on for
Do a
a
rap.
rap battle.
Yeah, no, Steve-O's good. Zakawani's good. I listened to some of his stuff last week. He's good.
Mark, let's save that.
Yeah.
That is worth saving.
That is.
And we need to come. Yeah, we'll come in with a song. We'll
There
come
you
in
go.
with something to perform.
He's gonna roll
That's
in
him.
some
You know
step
what
down.
I used to call Steve Zakawani. No one gets this one. Seal back in the day. No one got, and I used to call him Seal all the time. That's a compliment. Seal's
Everybody will
fantastic.
now.
I said "Kiss from a Rose" all the time. We saw each other. But he used to
Steve
call me
doesn't
John Legend. He used to call me John Legend. I used to call him Seal.
If he doesn't sing "Kiss from a Rose" the next time he's here,
Damn. Did Steve, by the way, always like wine?
Never. He didn't drink. He didn't drink.
because now he's on that one.
Oh yeah.
All about the wine.
He's on the
Absolutely about
rosé
that,
now.
yes.
Rosé.
So
Absolutely.
what's something that you like really truly believe in that other people might find weird?
Ghosts, aliens.
People might find weird.
Yeah, or it might be atypical.
Not just weird,
or-
but yeah, just like something.
I mean, it could be weird, but
Yeah.
Love at first sight.
it's such a thoughtful.
I was trying to
He's
hear
very
this
good
from the.
That's a very good answer. Is that
For the little.
is that
for the
something
little
that
one.
actually happened?
I'm unsure as to.
That's a good one.
It's like-
No.
How you, for Brooklyn?
Oh.
I will verify that one. That gets a blue check mark from me.
For Brooklyn?
Adam is like all 38 times that I saw my children. I was in love immediately.
Instantly.
You actually had another one while we were here?
Yeah.
And
He texted me.
The first time Adam looked at
That's
his 75th
hilarious.
child.
Oh my gosh. That's great. That's hilarious.
Speaking of second buses,
So I just did a GoFundMe for a laptop. Now it's time to do a GoFundMe for
Second bus.
Partridge Family Bus.
We contribute. We contribute. Similar to how the ECS contributed to my fine. Fantastic. Still goes.
Good shout.
the best part about that kind of stuff is, generally speaking, if players do basically anything that we think is super badass, people are like, how much is this going to cost us?
That's
we
that
get-
precedent.
Right,
That's that precedent.
Can we get a bar to underwrite this?
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's funny.
So it's usually around the time we think about maybe finishing up.
Yep.
Do you still have a couple minutes,
I
or
do.
you need to
I
hang
do.
out? I do have one question. What's your go-to karaoke?
Oh, I did it once. I thought at an ECS party.
Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Superstar.
Is that actually
yeah,
a
That's
thing?
your song.
I did it.
That's John Legend's.
I did.
Thanks.
I did.
That was the joke.
I did Wonderwall.
Nice.
I did Wonderwall.
Hey, Rom, are you
that's
listening?
in my go-tos. So
Is it really? Nice.
big fan.
Minnesota United.
Yeah. I did.
That's their
Wonderwall.
post-match song.
Oh.
Yeah. Every home game.
Huh.
So let's do predictions for Wednesday.
We got 2 games.
Yeah.
Let's do predictions for Wednesday and Saturday?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
In-
2-game week.
in,
Double game
Los-
week.
So Wednesday is,
Philadelphia.
Sunday is
8 p.m.
Galaxy.
Okay.
Los
4
Angeles.
We will win both of them. That's my predictions. Go.
Yep.
Wednesday 2-0.
Okay. Sunday.
At least one own goal.
by Zlatan.
Owen has not scored in one match now.
That's
So
true.
We need to get back on that
We
horse.
want that golden boot for
It-
Owen.
Is he also going to tell a player that he made the rules?
I would say Sunday in Los Angeles, 3-1. Mark?
I'm going to go with, 3-0 on Wednesday.
Like it.
And I like 3-1 on Sunday. Ibra's going to score a goal.
But then he immediately gets red carded.
Immediately gets red
That
carded.
is absolutely
Yeah.
possible.
I go 3-0 Wednesday and 2-1 on Sunday.
It depends on what the rotation they have for which game they rotate for. They rotate players in for Philly or LA.
I don't know if Sounders care right now.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be some rotation. There's going to be some rotation.
Sounders are like, we're up 2-0.
Yeah.
Sub in Will Bruin.
Yeah, one game is a 6-pointer. One's a true 6-pointer.
Yeah.
One's a 3.
Right.
So, but I'll just say Wednesday. I'll say hard fought 1-0 because I think that's the one they will rotate.
Yeah, they fight.
And then Sunday. And then obviously LA's just a tire fire on defense, so I'm going to say 3-2. However, to the Sounders because Zlatan will probably score
goals in that game. There'll be some goals in that game.
I was also going to go 1-0 for the Wednesday night, something like a 89th minute
Should have rolled a higher number with your die.
goal. Sunday, I'm kind of worried because I think if Ozzy Alonso and Zlatan ever meet,
Oh my
Can we just have a force
gosh.
field in between them so they're not allowed to meet?
That would be so
so the
fantastic.
10v10 result.
Right. But do two lions? I think two alphas have respect for each other, though, right? Ibra is one of those guys.
I don't know.
If he
No,
has respect
he doesn't
for you,
respect
then
anybody.
he has respect for you.
Like
I don't
Michael
know.
Bradley.
He doesn't have, but he
Is
never
a
had.
lion.
He
Doesn't
never
have-
had-
obviously has no
Anyone
respect
have
for Bradley.
For Michael Bradley right now.
Dude,
Like, no,
if you compare Michael Bradley's record and
No, I
performance
never
in
got to,
history
no,
to Ozzy
no.
Alonso,
Yeah,
Bradley
it'll
is
be
a
battle.
player that
It'll be a
internationally
battle,
would
for
be
sure.
known.
It'll be a
I
battle.
And
don't
Ozzy
think
is not.
Ibra cares.
Right.
So Ibra isn't going to give a damn who Ozzy Alonso is. And
True,
Ozzy's going to
true.
react to that very well.
True.
Very,
True.
very well.
figure
So
it out.
it's going to be a
best part is-
10v10 game, and it's going to probably be something like 3-3.
Speaking of Ozzy, that was my. I said it all year long. I said when Ozzy gets healthy again and wears the captain's armband, its team goes on a different trajectory. for me.
Absolutely.
I said
Absolutely.
that. I said, knowing and being on the field with him and then watching it, I go for the first 5 games when he wasn't, or the first few games when he wasn't on the field. I remember talking to Pete Fewing, and I was like, "This is just a weird game. This is very weird to watch. We're at home, and you let LAFC run the midfield. They bossed it, and I was like, this is absurd." And this is opening day. I mean, you have the commissioner there. I met with the commissioner. You have the president, Mark Abbott, there. You have like big executives from MLS, and you watch the game, and then you're like, this is the opener? I was like, where was the energy? Where was the vigor? Where was the fight? Where was the bat? And I'm like, it's in the midfield. It's one player that brings that. And I said, not only one, but one player that I know brings that everywhere he goes, and it's Ozzy Alonso. And you see the trajectory. He's gotten healthy, and then everyone around him has gotten better as well. And obviously Ladero, Rui, Raul Duiz, everyone is playing at 7 and 8. But if there's one key figure in that, up the spine of your team, is Ozzy Alonso. Chad Marshall's playing off the charts. Stephen Fry's playing off the charts. Everyone's playing. Kim's playing off the charts. But if I had to choose one player, right? If you had to choose one player, and that's how, Ziggy almost used to say, this is the player you want to be. If we were on the team and you guys could walk in and choose 5 people to go to battle with every single day, rain, sleet, snow, sunshine, whatever it was, he said, I am very happy in my career. I could be on that list of 5 for almost every team that I've been on. So for my list of 5, I would go like Ozzy Alonso, Brad Evans, Steve Zakuani, Jeff Park, Casey, guys like that. It's like you only had 5 people, 5 guys to build your core team around. Mm-hmm. What 5 guys you choose? Every single person that's played with Ozzy Alonso has him at number 1, guaranteed.
There's the reason he's El Corazon.
Yep.
All right. We are getting close to time, but there's still a few things.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's a few things that I think we should talk about. And actually, one of them was Mickey. There's been a lot going on. You've been gone. Like, what's up? What's going on in
Mickey,
your
by the
world?
way, I heard got the guy head nod from Don Garber.
I did. Speaking of
So-
meeting
so-
Don Garber,
Guy head nod.
So James, just so you know, Mickey has been really closely following the crew,
Nice.
the crew stuff. So he's kind of been our go-to guy.
Save the crew.
Yep.
That's the Mickey Turner.
The Mickey Turner. He's here at
Esquire.
He's here at the bar.
Literally,
very
the guy
popular
from
in
MLS
Austin these days.
Was out with us in Fuel, and I saw Mickey sitting at the bar, and I was like, "Oh, that's Mickey Turner." And he literally goes, The Mickey Turner? You have to introduce
No,
me.
the other one.
And I literally just yelled at Mickey across the bar.
Mickey, get over here.
I was like, all right, yeah, fine. Who's this guy?
Yeah, what's it?
Actually,
what's that argument?
Absolutely nothing's been going on.
And
Because
scene.
everyone in Columbus
Goodbye,
is
everybody.
paying attention to Urban Meyer right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Actually, there should be some fun stuff going on this week on the lawsuit.
Is your argument is to save the crew?
Oh, I just follow it. I just analyze.
Gotcha.
I don't have a specific.
You don't have a
point
You don't
point of
mean-
view.
Save the crew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'd like to see them
Mickey's
stay,
a
but-
lawyer.
Fly to
He's
Columbus.
Following it from the law.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
if
Love
the
it.
crew were to put you on retainer, would you be about saving the crew?
Well,
How about minus any legal affiliation?
what's my
Do you
legal
support?
opinion?
Yeah, no. Irrelevant of that. Do you support Save the Crew? Hashtag.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see them stay. Absolutely.
Has anyone ever flown you to Austin?
No, absolutely not.
there is
Or
a direct.
Dallas, and then drove to Austin.
Yeah, right. I have been to Frisco, and that's about as close as it gets.
So nothing's happening.
Nothing happened in the last couple of weeks. There should be some stuff going on this week. In fact, I think the Austin folks, they're supposed to have their draft of the lease, so maybe they finally announce the move tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So we'll see. But aside from that, nothing's gone on in the last week.
Adam's like, I was expecting something more significant than this.
There was another
There's a
question.
lull.
There's
There's a
actually
lull.
another question in the chat for you. I don't know if it's chat or Twitter, but whatever. That was specifically about S2 and D3, and there might be some or in stadium and stuff like that. So is there?
Well,
do you know?
Dave
anything?
probably has as much information as I do, but
Yeah.
I just asked the Sounders if they were going to stay in USL where they are, because there are teams that have dropped down. Who's dropped down? Toronto dropped down.
And Orlando rebooted,
Yeah,
but in D3.
yeah, and
Well,
then
that's because like regular Orlando is going to move down.
Wow.
relegation.
so I just asked the Sounders if they were going to
Caca
stay
joke.
where they were, given all of the changes, and they just confirmed that they were. So they'll be down. They'll be in USL, same as they were, and they're trying to get the stadium built. I was trying to get some information on the stadium. They wouldn't give me anything. So hopefully something
Weird.
comes. Yeah.
Here's the thing: the D3 and D2 standards have nothing to do with the quality of player. The standards actually don't require minimum salaries for either level.
Yeah.
So it's up to the individual organization how much they're going to pay. So when somebody who doesn't go to games in Tacoma says the Sounders should drop to D3, what they're telling the fans of Tacoma is, you deserve a worse stadium. Because the standards do have stadium requirements.
Yeah, it's
And the
5,000
D3 stadium
versus
requirements
1,000.
exist.
It's barely.
And
Barely.
the D2
What, like high
stadium
school field?
are minimum 5,000, lighting standards, TV standards. Like,
Yep.
I don't
it
even
has
know
a
what
professional
D3 is going to
impression.
have.
So I'm a little biased, true. I do get paid to cover the team. But at the same point, when people who don't go to games say the people of Tacoma don't deserve a good stadium and don't deserve coverage, it's insulting. It's like somebody from Oklahoma City saying, good job on losing the Sonics.
Yeah,
You should
it's
be
actually
happy about
a huge
it.
deal, and Metro Parks in Tacoma has
Yeah.
been a client of mine over the last couple of years. They're so excited about the opportunity to have a stadium. It's a pretty big deal for them, and I think their expectations and my conversations with Casey and some of the other people within the FO at S2, like they're full bore, all cylinders, whatever you want to call it. Like they have the same passion and drive for this that they do for Rainiers and other things, and that's to be the best that they can within the tier of sports that they're in. And it's not about like step down because it's easier or anything like that. So
It's about representing that community.
yeah.
And that's what they very true. Like, there were more than 5,000 people there at a game that went up against the UW Husky football team, that went up against the Seattle Sounders themselves, playing on the road they still had more than 5,000 people.
And ridiculous, like spotty pouring down, dumping
in
rain.
horrible weather conditions.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah.
You know,
It has rained
well,
every time
it says a
I've
lot
gone
about
to
their
a
commitment
festival.
because there are ramifications if they were to drop down, just from a financial standpoint. They can save a boatload of money just on the kind of front office side of things.
Right.
And so staying where they are definitely is going to cost them money. But if they've got a nice stadium and a rebrand, then they probably are in a position to make a profit. So
the next question,
or at least be sustainable.
Since we're on S2 and 50% of us draw a paycheck from S2, so I want to be respectful of that.
True.
What do we know about the Ray Sari situation? What do we know? Do we know anything? Why did he get let go 24 hours before?
After a heartwarming story about
So what do we know anything?
Yeah, I'll come in from not knowing anything about it, and just say, honest, that's professional sports. I mean, there could be some for me, I like to think that there's discussions behind the scenes, and it was a mutual agreement that said this could be the best opportunity for him to maybe even, get in with the team now as he's unattached. He get back home, closer to home. He has an injury. He knows that he's not going to progress to the first team. I love covering him, right? I think he's kind of in that Estrada mold. He hasn't been there yet, but he's in there. Him and Norbone are there to provide that veteran presence. And I loved watching him. He's worn the captain's armband, which means his teammates respect him, the coaching staff respects him, and that's how I've gained my trust over the years. I go into a game, right, or a training session wanting to gain the respect of my coaching staff and the players around me and the supporters groups. Those are the three things. Everything else doesn't matter. So, I was sad to see him go, but I know it's a part of professional sports, so hopefully he lands it bigger and better and he's able to progress and move on. But the timing of it, a lot of teams make moves around that time, right? As your roster freezes and you have to make moves and you're like, okay, academy player can progress in his. We see an academy player at 17 coming in and playing in his position like a Gilroy. Sari's been injured, for the last 3-4 weeks. He still has a hamstring injury that's nagging him. Let's release him. I don't know the stipulations and the contractual agreements as far as paying him out through the season, but saying he's still going to be paid out throughout the end of the season. So now he actually gets to go home, rest, regroup, and then, that coaching staff without a doubt would be like, yes, we will 100% vouch for him at this next club, whatever that be.
More gives him the opportunity to sign with another club where he might have a better potential to move up.
Right.
Or he may have had some other options already.
Right.
That's I wouldn't even call it speculation. Just chatting with, just chatting. That's kind of the feeling I got. Is maybe he had some other options, and he was just like, "Why don't you just let me go?"
We'd know if he had those other options right now because he would have had to have signed by Friday.
That's also true.
So it could be in soccer or out of soccer. It's one of those things. And that's why I loved covering S2 because I could see that. Right, I go straight to the guys that are, and Smetzer said it in one of our production meetings for the first team. He goes, when S2 or when the Sounders lost that Open Cup game in SAC, there's a few guys crying after the game, and that's the passion that I love. It literally gives me emotional now. That's the passion that you want to fucking see because they know that could be their last opportunity to play in front of a first-team coach and a first-team game in a competition that fucking means something.
Right.
That's what you play for. That gives me chills right now. That's literally what you play for. And so, Sari was one of those players, a couple other, they are literally in tears after the Open Cup game because that was their first time, maybe their first and only time that they had an opportunity to impress the first-team staff. And the whole point of the S2, right, regardless of what is said at USL or whatever, because they're an MLS-affiliated team, is to progress to the first team.
Right.
I mean, that's the function of S2 right now, is to promote players in a pathway, create a pathway where they can get promoted to the first team. So you see a player that's, hanging on, but he brings those attributes to, a training session and game that you're like, fuck, I like this guy. But then there comes a point, right, where you're like, okay, we need to cut ties because it's for your benefit and it's for our benefit because this is our motto, this is our methodology. You don't fit that anymore, but you're once a Sounder, always a Sounder. You'll always be part of this family. We will highly recommend you to any club that comes to us You go for, nothing holds bar. You go for free. And now he has some freedom to just honestly do some soul searching to see if this is what he wants to do anymore, or if he wants to continue to progress. So for me, and I brought it up to Adam. It's funny because I brought it up to Adam, and I brought it up to Andrew, and I brought it up to Dave, and I go, are we not going to talk about this? And they go, yeah, not until we get confirmation from, the media side or whatever. I go, okay, that's fine. But for me, this is something that you should cover because you have a long-term standing captain that has given his heart and soul to the club, that is trying to progress up the ranks, that's let go. Whatever it is behind the scenes, we honor it, and that's part of the game. He's let go, but we wish him the best.
Well, and just to close out, there's been other players that S2 has had that have kind of fit the same they came up against the timeline. Andy Craven, who was the Francisco or Pablito Rossi. Yeah, they were 23, 24 years old, and at some point
Rossi's
come up.
happened at the end of the year. Craven, he immediately signed with another team.
Yeah. But it's because they didn't fit what the Sounders were looking for. At least going forward, they didn't see a path for them to be consistent first-team players, and so.
And neither of those happened while the player was injured.
Well, the injury I can't speak to.
Make appearances at children's hospitals.
I think there's a zillion,
that I can't speak to.
There's a zillion factors on this one, and I think the fact that maybe the fact that we haven't heard anything since Thursday, probably just means it's exactly what James you were speaking about, like. Probably a mutual decision. Doesn't seem like there was some egregious thing that happened. It kind of just is what it is.
Could be just a cold, calculated soccer/business decision.
Is what it is.
Invite him on the show for next Monday, and you'll find out.
And
get the exclusive.
I mean, while we're talking about transactions, not to make light of it, but if you were to pick a team that Caleb Porter could go to, that the Sounders could beat up on a couple times.
LA Galaxy.
Galaxy? So not San Jose? Because they're both equally humorous.
Big market, LA Galaxy.
Okay. So you want big devastation.
A spectacular failure. That's what we're looking for
Nobody
here.
pays attention to San Jose.
Caleb,
I'm
sorry, but Caleb Porter following Ziggy Schmidt as coach of a team is such a weird thing. Like galactically odd.
I would love it just because it'd mean the Galaxy are paying a fifth coach.
Galactically odd for the Galaxy?
Stop.
Well, they got
just let it go.
You said it.
Let it go.
Actually, right, they're not paying Arena anymore. But they would have an
Are you sure?
Schmidt.
It's MLS rules. No one knows.
What's
and important.
So some insight.
Bobby Bonilla.
Yeah, Bobby Bonilla.
He's 2037.
Some
Greatest
insight
contract ever.
Into that is when I was with the Galaxy in 2014, right? I did my knee early in the season. I did win the starting spot, just an FYI. It didn't happen. I did do my knee lateral meniscus tear. But for me, Bruce Arena ran a fantastic ship. And I heard through the grapevine that after that, it gets different because you attract, and the Sounders are going to get there, right? The bigger the club that Sounders want to get to, they're going to have to learn how to manage big-name players, right? Obafemi Martins, Clint Dempsey, like big-name players with massive personalities. They're going to learn how to, they have to be able to manage that. And up to date, they've done, seemingly well with managing the big-name of personalities. Eddie Johnson, another one. And so, for me, the Galaxy are in a difficult situation because since Bruce has left, and even in Bruce's last tenure, his last half season or full season, there have been some bigger personalities there, and he hasn't necessarily had maybe full capacity to kind of maneuver and do different things, and you see a different person. But I've gotten insights from the locker room where, so when you travel, we used to have, for the Sounders, we used to have 3 first-class seatings. So it used to be, I think, Casey Keller, three. Casey Keller, maybe Ziggy and Freddie Lundberg were the 3 first-class seats. And it's no problem, right? And then that shifts. For the Galaxy, all of their DP TAM players were sitting first class. So you had your DP and TAM players sitting first class. That already just creates a divide. Casey Keller used to give up his first-class seat all the time. He used to rotate it for guys all the time. And some guys even just felt weird, me including wanting to sit in first class. I'm like, I'm going to be back with the troops. I don't need to sit in first class. And so the Galaxy are suffering from the fact that you don't have full commercial charter lease of your flight. So now you have 6 to 7 to 8 high-profile players sitting first class, and your rest of your team is sitting in the back, right, in windows or aisles, right? We've gotten to that windows, right? But there's still, even without saying it, there's certain divides. So you come to a thing where your DPs and your TAM players are hanging out more with each other, and then your other players aren't. And so you just have that natural divide. In 2014, it was a fantastic team. Everyone was included. You had Robbie Rogers coming out that year. You had Landon Donovan not making the World Cup team, and everyone came around him. You had, supported him. You had Omar Gonzalez, who made the World Cup team and scored a goal, and everyone was supporting him. You had, people retiring. You had so many storylines. Managing big personalities is something very, very difficult. For me, that's what LA Galaxy is doing. Steven Gerrard, Robbie Keane, into his retirement. I mean, literally, he didn't even find another MLS team. It's unbelievable.
I was shocked.
And now exactly,
People
right?
Minnesota.
Exactly.
There were a couple
Oh my gosh.
I was like,
exactly.
I don't know if I had a spot,
right?
And I wasn't Sounders.
Right.
You might sign that guy.
And now you have the Dos Santos brothers. You have Zlatan. You have other TAM players. Big influential personalities in LA, and that could either work for them or work against them. We'll see.
So now a little sidebar on that. How long do you think until MLS as a whole gets to the point where teams are able to just do charters whenever they
2020.
Because I remember a couple LA
new union contract.
Yeah, I remember a couple Galaxy games where we went down and getting on the plane and
you're riding with us
and riding with you guys, and I'm sitting in the exit row because I had status, and I'm just sort of like, sorry guys.
Mark waves
sorry,
on the way
Chad, as you're sitting back in 23B.
That's funny.
From what I've actually heard, and
you should have
jump in on this,
he would have bought you some beer.
I know, I should have.
From what I heard, at least the Sounders front office is all about the charter.
Well, and
charter changes.
I would think the clubs that are doing well financially, obviously, would be all for it, and the clubs that aren't doing so hot, Columbus.
You think Anthony Precourt's going to pay for charters? He can't even pay for advertising for his team.
But yeah,
and
I
that's
just
what
wonder,
it is.
like,
Great
how
question.
far off
Great
on the
question.
horizon do you think that is? Because I feel like that's another thing that will help elevate the league in our country. Because you look at even
they're pretty much the only league
hockey, those kids fly places.
MLS is pretty much the only league that does not have some accommodation.
It's a great question, and what it comes down to is ownership spend. Literally, that's what it is. It's ownership groups are making that decision. So it's no one else. It's not the GMs. It's not the players. It's not the head coaches. It's ownerships. And so right now, and the argument at the league office when I was there is, I believe each individual team gets 4 opportunities to charter. 75% of teams aren't even using those 4 opportunities to charter.
If
so
it's
then,
that much, wow.
How is it going? How are we now trying to get right? It's going to be
owner.
It's going to be owner spin. But our argument as a league to the ownership group, just to present it, was the sports science data.
Well,
so now you're flying in.
Yeah,
you're flying in. Then you get to fly out, which means you get extra practice days. You get players that are sleeping in their own bed. You get recovery. You get all that. So it actually makes for a better product on the field.
Yeah, you dictate when you get there.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder how many days that saves in a season.
Yeah, exactly.
On charters.
Right.
It's got to be like a week.
Right.
Well, and I get it. There is some us versus them, and don't let like haves and have-nots, and looking at things like NASL and the teams that could spend versus the ones that couldn't, and I get it. At some point, we have to grow out of this.
Oh, without a doubt.
And I think there's legit science and data that goes into some of this right now. And I think that's going to change the discussion.
I would find it shocking if 75% of the
league. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
right. Like it was a high. It was a high percentage enough to be like,
wow,
we're not even utilizing the 4.
Yeah. That's
chartered flights now that each
hear.
teams have. They're not even utilizing all 4. So that was the argument.
That blows my mind, actually.
So that was the argument. But yeah.
So I have a two-part, two questions about Galaxy time. The first, on the serious kind of fun story, I mean, I think we saw it from Instagram and Twitter. You mentioned Robbie Rogers. I remember there was an Instagram post of like the team dinner. LD had written something on the wall or marker board or whatever it was. It was like, girlfriends, boyfriends, side pieces, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I remember everybody watched it or looked at that and they were like, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
what was that like?
It was fantastic from that point of view because I played against Robbie Rogers for ages, and I knew players that knew him very well and that were good friends with him, from like Chad Marshall to Brad Evans, knew him very well and spoke highly of him. But when we're on the field, I'm battling literally.
Yeah.
I have to kick him. I want to kick him. That's just because of what it was. But off the field, he's a great guy, and we got to know each other because we were actually competing for the left back spot. So it was Todd Donovan, it was myself, and it was Robbie Rogers competing for the left back spot for the Galaxy. And so LD for me is one of the best at being very cerebral and just knowing energy and just feeling the group. And I thought he did very well with that message, and it I think it transcended, honestly. And so once Robbie Rogers announced it, there was full support for him, which there should be, and then it just kind of it was business as usual.
It was so well done.
Yeah,
I just thought, and like it was funny, but at the same time, like dead on message, really well done. And it's funny you mentioned playing against or seeing Robbie Rogers when he was potentially available at one point. I remember Sounders fans going, "Please go get Robbie Rogers," because you wouldn't think twice about that, And then kind of on the you
What's
say,
he doing these days?
I don't know.
He definitely retired.
Fact.
Okay,
good on him.
Okay,
like
I
every
feel
good
like
show
I haven't heard much.
And he
on
has
television,
a son.
actually.
And he has a son.
TV, so.
He has a toddler. So being a dad,
Actually,
being a
speaking
dad,
of-
which takes up a lot of time. I don't know how you even have time with four. With one takes up a lot
Speaking
of
of children, I think
He has so
yours
many
might
he just
be
doesn't even know anymore.
might be kind of done.
Might be time.
Oh no,
So-
she's a trooper. She
Okay.
knows. She knows how to rally.
So
Yeah,
my last question for you of my two-part is, you facilitated the transfer of ECS's birthday gift
that was
to
not
LD.
That was, but
Wait,
let's clarify
as the person
this.
that purchased the Chili's gift
I
card.
still may have it. Hey, we should frame that. I still
Right.
may have it.
If you
I don't
have
know
the
how
birthday
that
card-
ended up. I don't know how that
We-
ended up in my
we-
hands. This is what. Okay, please.
Derek,
finish, and then I'm gonna
Derek and I,
give
Derek
my-
was the capo, the
That's
lead
so
capo
funny.
for ECS at the time.
That's
We
so
were in Los
funny.
Angeles, and we did great things like try and find a good mojito, find a bottle of port, some
bar.
Washington wine.
You should have just called me. I was
Search
living
out
in
the tiki
Hermosa
bars,
Beach at the time. You should have
and
just called me.
oh, it's LD's birthday. Get an ECS birthday card for Landon Donovan, and we bought a sort of retirement card that we modified slightly, and a $25 Chili's gift card.
Okay.
And then we were like, how can we get this to Landon Donovan?
That gets you a lot of margaritas.
And then we
by the
found
way.
someone who was like, I
Dollar
can get this
mark.
to James Riley.
Yeah.
And somehow it got to James Riley.
Yeah, it did.
And then we didn't know what happened
Yeah.
from that point
This
on.
is going in the basement at
It
Temple,
didn't
isn't
give. It did not get transferred. So when I find it, I can either bring it back, and we
Or
can share a margarita, or I can
Y'all
give it.
can just go to Chili's.
No, I
That's
remember
still
that.
around.
I remember who gave it to me.
Brooklyn's first chili.
It was someone that either was former Sounders FO, who is now at Galaxy,
Who gave
whatever
to
it
me?
was.
Like Lori?
Was it
It
Jenny?
may have been.
Is that what you
Lori?
say? It was Jenny?
Either
it would have been
way,
Lori
You
or
just don't
Katie.
want to
All
say
we
Jenny.
knew was it got
Lori
to
or
James
Katie?
Riley.
Lori or Katie.
And we were like, you know what, guys? It's good enough. It
I
got
know.
to James Riley.
Thank you. Because I felt terrible. It was in a stint where I think because we played the Sound. It's crazy, right? We played the Sounders at Landon Donovan's
Was his birthday or
last
retirement?
home game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was just too many Sounders. I think by the time I got it, there was so many Sounders games. I'm like, I just don't know how to give this. I don't know how to properly give this to him. I really don't.
How do I approach
And the
him
best part
with
was
this?
we're literally in the parking lot, the
I don't know how to
visitors,
give this to
supporters
him.
parking lot, and people are signing the card, and we're like,
That's-
should we be mean? What do we
my
do
gosh.
here?
Oh my
It was
gosh.
great. And the worst part was we were strangely confident that it would get to Landon
Yeah.
Donovan. And it got to James Riley, which again, close enough.
Yeah, but was
at
it a
that point.
kind gesture? I
Landed
guess
a
I never knew the like storyline of the actual Chili's gift card. That was my hesitancy. I didn't know. I'm like, am I giving him something that's like gonna hurt him? I
Is
don't know
this
what
weird?
I'm doing, right? Like, what am I doing right now?
So what you're saying is you've
Anthrax
potentially
enclosed.
not even opened this envelope.
I know it's unopened. It's unopened.
It's a Chili's gift card, and the messages are super funny.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
When I
Zero
find that, I think I have it at my home.
If there's no anthrax
I think I
in
have
this
it
envelope.
in my home in Colorado Springs, my mother's home. If I find that,
It might
that's a
be
collector's
funnier if
item.
you just leave it there.
That needs to come on the
Yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah.
That needs to
That's
come on the
amazing.
show 100%.
I'm just
The
mad
night
it's
that
not-
you
Put it up here underneath the
freestyle,
Maker's Mark.
the night that you freestyle with Steve Zakawani,
We'll open it.
Yeah.
we'll read those messages.
Yeah.
So
I'm just
And
mad it
Deuce,
wasn't from
and
the
Deuce.
Apple
We're
Pay.
inviting Deuce for a guest appearance.
So we could probably do this all night, but we
This
should.
is a long
we should
drive
just,
from Cleellum.
We should just thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
actually
you.
amazing that you were here. Thank you. Thank you to
Yeah, we really
Preston.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Always a
This
pleasure.
was super fun.
Jessica, thank you very much.
Thanks to George for
Thanks,
making
George.
it
Thank
out
you,
here
George.
tonight. Long night for George.
I don't know why George
Yeah.
sounds like that.
So George has
George
things
has
to do
another
this week.
visit?
Wait.
That's
Actually,
hilarious.
Are you going to just go to George?
What happens that?
I just
Are we
Just
off?
text that to James.
Are we
Ryan.
done?
He'll-
no, we're still on the air.
Oh,
Why?
So we can say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
We'll figure that out.
Say good night.
Good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right, everybody wave.
Thanks, Katie.
Keep waving.
Bye, Katie. We're
Keep waving.